Hi, I'm Rebecca, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Ivizia Eye Drops and Ivizia Gel. And first, a confession. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing them correctly. If you happen to watch TV, you're probably way ahead of me on that point because apparently these drops have been advertised a lot on TV. So first, some context for Ivizia. Ivizia brand is from a European company called Tea Pharmaceutical, and they're very well known in the dry eye world in Europe, where their main eye drop is called Thiolaz Duo. And their drops are known for a combination of sodium hyaluronate and trehalose. They recently started bringing their products to the U.S. market, and that includes their eye drops, plus some eyelid care products, which we'll talk about in a week or two, and also some prescription stuff. They've got a preservative-free glaucoma drop, for example. But to get back to the eye drops, I mentioned sodium hyaluronate. Now, that's a common active ingredient in Europe. If you see my stuff, you've heard me talk about it 100 times. Unfortunately, to market sodium hyaluronate eye drops in the U.S., you have to reformulate them and add something else that's on the FDA's happy list of what we'll call pre-approved active ingredients for OTC drops. I don't really mean approved, but the ones that fit the thing that they call the OTC monograph. Anyway, most companies that have found themselves facing that requirement have opted to use glycerin in that role. Tea chose a polymer instead called povidone, which is not as common these days, but used to be a pretty popular ingredient for artificial tears. So let's have a look. First, the drops. Now, the big claim to fame here for Ivizia is definitely this bottle. And a little background for those who aren't necessarily used to seeing preservative-free eye drops in bottles. This is the new trend, especially, or rather, eventually, most preservative-free eye drops are going to be packaged in special bottles instead of little vials. Over time, we're just definitely headed that direction. These special bottles have things like filters so they don't suck bacteria back into the bottle every time you squeeze out a drop. And for some reason in this country, we've kind of been slow to adopt this type of bottle. People seem to love to hate these preservative-free bottles. Here's an example, by the way, of another one. I took the label off so you can't really tell, but that's the popular type. Sometimes they look like that. They've got a kind of a pretty flat top. Sometimes the little thing in the middle is blue. Sometimes the caps are a little bit different. Some of them screw on. This one just sort of pushes on, which I always found kind of annoying. Anyway, some bottles are better than others. And I think Tea's bottle for these Ivizia drops is, for this category, hands down the best packaging. I mean, I really hope they eventually license this bottle out to other companies to use because it's just a really good bottle. So here's the Tea bottle. Here's the conventional type. I'll take that thing off. These are actually, I mean, the Tea one looks bigger, but doesn't actually hold more. These are both 10 ml bottles, right? Just different kind of packaging. So Tea's bottle is, like I said, larger. It's a little easier to squeeze, and I think it really does kind of a better drop of just pumping out one drop rather than sort of oozing goo, which is the point you get to sometimes with some of the other bottles. Now, who are these particular drops going to be most useful for? I would say this is a pretty good general purpose eye drop for daytime. One of the tops out there really for that purpose. And it's the part I really like about it. It's pretty reasonably priced. I would personally choose this over kind of the mainstream American over-the-counter eye drop brands for daytime use. But it's not something I would necessarily consider as a heavy hitter for severe symptoms. I mean, I know there are plenty of people with severe dry eye who prefer this for their daytime thing. It is thinner. It's not going to goop up your eyes too much and all that. But for people who need the strongest during the day, I would definitely be looking to like Optase or Oasis, especially Oasis Tears Plus. And one last point about these drops. They have two sizes, actually. I don't have the other one here. They're the only company I know that has a multi-dose preservative-free bottle where they're actually selling two sizes, a 5 ml and a 10 ml. So if you want to try it out and get a little bit lower price, the 5 ml is a good option. Now let's look at the gel. That's this guy. I confess I find the packaging annoying, but that's probably mostly because I just so rarely use individual vials anymore. So they come in the envelopes, which there's plenty of other brands that do that. to, I don't know, if here's an Oasis and such. I have a little difficulty opening these envelopes sometimes. I mean, if you know exactly where to tear, if you can see it, okay, it's the little notched thing there. But honestly, on a bad-eyed day when I most need my thickest drops, that's when I'm least able to see this sort of thing. So I find it a little annoying trying to get them open. If I got it just right, fine, it zips open quite easily. And they're just conventional little single-use vials. Now, it's called a gel, but that word gel means different things to different people and different companies. So I'm going to run through, just for comparison, a few different categories of so-called gels from least thick to most thick, just for context. Now, there are things called gels sold in vials like this, and they're basically thicker than regular drops and things like Refresh Celluvisc. Then there's things called liquid gels in bottles. I don't have an example here. They're thicker than regular drops and they're preserved, which is why I don't have examples here, because we just don't keep preserved stuff around in general, except for the third category of gels, which is gels in tubes like Gentile gel and Sustain gel, the ones that have the dissipating preservatives. Those are the thickest of things that I would truly call a gel. Then the fourth is ointments, greasy stuff made from petrolatum and mineral oil. And some people call those gels, but they aren't. They're ointments. Anyway, Ivizia gel is in that first category I mentioned. It's a thick, preservative-free drop. And the closest functional equivalent on the market, I think, is Refresh Celluvisc. So if you want something about that thick, or maybe even a little bit more so, but maybe a little more modern, maybe a little better for you, maybe some newer ingredients, then I would definitely encourage you to try Ivizia gel. I haven't personally been able to get quite as excited about it as some of the people who have told me that they love it. It's a really popular gel, but I do find it very comfortable. And that's a significant accomplishment for a gel, really, just to have nothing irritating about it, at least for me. It does feel very good going in. And that's all I have to share today about Ivizia Eye Drops and Ivizia Gel. If you've got questions, reach out to Dry Eye Shop customer service by phone or text at 877-693-7939 or email at service@dryeyeshop.com. Thanks.